Let's bring in Law and Crime Network analyst Terry Austin for more on all of this. Terry, good morning. We're just learning right now that the jury is resuming deliberations now, a little earlier than expected. Can you walk us through just how this process works, and is there anything to be gleaned from that?
Well, you know, Diane, good morning. They started deliberating yesterday around 4 o'clock, and they deliberated for about 4 hours until they stopped, and they're doing that again this morning. I think Judge Cahill really wants this process to move forward. He has been the type of judge to make sure that the trial doesn't have any stagnation, that it keeps moving forward. He makes sure that after any session of the court is happening, that the next section continues on. So, for instance, if there is a closing, you saw that he moved very quickly to have the next closing statement and then the rebuttal. And so what I think is happening here is part of that same process. The judge really wants this deliberation to continue quickly. He has said, as we've mentioned before, prepare for something long, hope for something short, but he's wasting no time getting this jury working and making sure that they are focused. I'm sure that they have all of the equipment that they need if they want to look at any exhibits. If they have questions, of course, that will be something that the court will be alerted, and all of the attorneys will be called back via Zoom, as I understand it. And so he really wants this to go quickly. He wants them to deliberate, but he wants them to consider it carefully. And I think that is what we're seeing right now.
And Terry, the prosecution during closing arguments really focused on the 9 minutes and 29 seconds that Derek Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's neck, telling the jurors to believe their eyes and emphasizing that Chauvin knew better but didn't do better. How effective were these arguments overall?
I think it was extremely effective. The fact that he told the jurors, look, you saw these 44, 45 witnesses. One, of course, was called back. And there is an additional witness. The additional witness is your common sense. And I think that the jurors know that. They recognize that. And we also saw the prosecution talk about the crowd. And I thought that was effective because they wound in the fact that this crowd really was talking to the jury. They were there and they saw what was going on. They were not unruly. They were not a threat. They took the videos. You saw, jury, those videos, and they came here to talk to you. And so, of course, we know that the defense has these quote unquote stories, which, of course, was objected to. But the defense was trying to show that there were these other issues at play, that it did not caused the death because of Derek Chauvin, but the death was caused because of these intervening factors like the heart, like the drugs, et cetera. And I think the prosecution did an excellent job of telling the jury, look, yes, you can believe your eyes. You can believe these witnesses. They were there. They saw it. They came and they told you what they saw. They told you the truth, and they cared. They were caring citizens. So I think that part of the prosecution's closing was very effective.
Now, as you pointed out, the defense, on the other hand, argued that a lot happened before that 9-minute video was recorded that has to be considered, including the police struggle with Floyd, his health, his drug use. They also tried to raise doubt in the honesty of the prosecution, it seemed, pointing to, for example, a still image that the prosecution showed of Derek Chauvin's weight completely on Floyd, and then showing in the video that his boot came off the ground only for a second. And there were a few other examples like that. So did you think Eric Nelson managed to raise some reasonable doubt with this closing argument?
You know, it seemed to me, and maybe that's my own perspective or perception, but it seemed to me that he was, in a sense, grasping at straws. He has a very difficult case. I have to say, I think he's doing as good a job as you can under these circumstances, and pointing to all of the issues he can possibly point to try to defend his client. And I think the jury is going to recognize the fact that, well, yes, maybe Chauvin's toe wasn't leaning up against George Floyd the entire time. Maybe it came up for a second, and perhaps these other factors are factors, but for the knee on the neck and the back and the restraint, but for that, we would still have George Floyd with us today. And I think Jerry Blackwell, when he came and did his rebuttal, pointed that out. There was a chart about all these dots and the fact that all of these other conditions, the bad heart, the issues that he was dealing with as far as drugs were concerned, all of these issues were happening all of the days of George Floyd's life prior to that very day. And in fact, prior to those 9 minutes and 29 seconds. And we still saw, of course, that George Floyd lived. And it wasn't until this subdural, restraint and compression that he died. And that was the but-for cause of his death.
And then I'd love to get your take on this moment with Judge Cahill and the defense, where the judge said that Congresswoman Maxine Waters telling protesters to get more confrontational if there's no conviction could be grounds for an appeal. What did you make of that?
Diane, that was one of the moments I think that Judge Cahill, throughout the course of this trial, was the most upset or annoyed. He, of course, has had moments where he has been annoyed with the attorneys. He has lost a little bit of patience. I think he's been controlled, not to say that he's been uncontrolled, but you can certainly tell when he's all about the business. And I think he was disturbed by her comments. She said that the protesters should get more confrontational. She later explained that what she meant was that nonviolent confrontation, but it could have been, I think, mistaken by others. And of course, we did hear people who were saying, particularly other politicians, saying that those words were not necessary. And Judge Cahill did make a good point here. He didn't say it was a mistrial, and the last thing he wants to do after all of this time and effort is to have a mistrial. But it could be a ground for appeal later on if, in fact, a juror was influenced by that.
All right, Terry Austin, keeping things interesting. We appreciate your analysis, Terry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.